No one knew where the dog had come from. It was just there, silent, unmoving, and grieving, in the small country churchyard of a sleepy town in Montana. The girl, 10-year-old Lily Mae Thornton, had died unexpectedly after a brief illness, leaving her family and the entire town devastated. The funeral was modest but heartfelt, attended by neighbors, classmates, and teachers, all gathered to say goodbye to a child who had radiated joy, kindness, and an inexplicable understanding of others' pain. But in the midst of familiar faces, there was one no one recognized, a scruffy, emaciated stray dog with deep brown eyes and a limp in its hind leg. It appeared as soon as the funeral began, slipping past the cemetery gate like a shadow. The dog walked straight to the pale white coffin and sat beside it, refusing to move. At first, the mourners assumed it had simply wandered in, confused. But as the priest began his eulogy, the dog did something that silenced the air. It howled, a long, low, mournful cry that sounded more human than animal. Some thought it was eerie, others heartbreaking. Lily's parents were too distraught to notice the dog at first, but her younger brother, Jamie, spotted it and tugged on his father's coat. "Dad, look, that dog, it's crying too." And sure enough, the dog's eyes were wet, its head bowed as if in prayer. No one had ever seen such a thing. After the ceremony ended and the mourners began to leave, the dog remained at the coffin. Even when the pallbearers gently lowered Lily into the ground, the dog whimpered and tried to crawl closer. A man stepped forward to shoo it away, but Lily's mother, her eyes swollen and voice barely above a whisper, said, "No, let him stay. If he came to say goodbye, let him." That night, when the cemetery was quiet and dark, the groundskeeper returned to check on the flowers, and to his astonishment, the dog was still there, curled up beside the fresh grave, as if guarding it from the night. Word of the grieving stray spread through town like wildfire. Photos appeared online of the skinny dog keeping vigil beside Lily's grave. People speculated wildly. Was it a lost pet from another town? A spirit animal? A sign from Lily herself? But then, a story began to emerge. Slowly, quietly, from a memory Lily's parents had almost forgotten. Months before her death, Lily had told them about Charlie, a stray dog she claimed to visit at the old railroad tracks after school. She'd sneak out bits of sandwich meat or leftover casserole and whisper stories to him. Her parents assumed it was just imaginary, a fantasy. But Lily had drawn pictures of him in her notebook, labeled with big block letters, "Charlie, my secret best friend." Her sketch looked exactly like the dog now curled at her grave. Suddenly, everything made sense. The dog wasn't a stranger. He had loved her. He had waited. And somehow, in his animal heart, he had known she was gone. Lily's father knelt beside the dog the next morning and reached out his hand. The dog sniffed it, then gently placed its head into the man's palm. That's when the tears came. Not just from the father, but from those who watched, unable to hold back their emotion. In a world where love so often goes unnoticed, this dog had proven that even the most unlikely bonds could echo beyond death. The family adopted Charlie that day. He became a permanent fixture in their home, a bridge between memory and healing. At night, he would lie at the foot of Jamie's bed, and sometimes he'd bark softly in his sleep, as if dreaming of the girl he'd lost, but never forgotten. They placed a small statue of a dog beside Lily's gravestone, with a plaque that read, "Charlie, faithful friend and guardian of love." Years passed, but the story of Charlie and Lily became legend in their town, taught in school assemblies, shared in Sunday sermons, and told around campfires. And even when Charlie's own time came, the town gathered once more, not to mourn, but to honor a love that was purer than words. Charlie was buried just beside Lily, under a tree that now blooms a little brighter every spring. Some say if you visit on a quiet evening, just as the sun dips below the horizon, you can hear a soft bark in the wind, and feel that Lily and Charlie, two old souls reunited, are still keeping watch over one another. In the years that followed, the small cemetery became more than just a place of rest. It became a sanctuary. People from neighboring towns began visiting the site, not just out of curiosity, but out of reverence. Some brought their children to teach them about loyalty. Others came to leave small tokens, flowers, painted rocks, letters written in crayon addressed to Charlie and Lily. The tree under which they were buried was nicknamed the Guardian Tree, and it grew tall and strong, as if nurtured by the bond it stood watch over. One summer, on the anniversary of Lily's passing, a young girl named Mia came to the cemetery with her parents. She was quiet, much like Lily had been, and carried a notebook with a drawing of her own stray dog, one that had passed away a year earlier. As they stood near Lily and Charlie's grave, the wind picked up gently, and Mia said softly, "I think they're playing together in the sky now, my dog and Charlie." That evening, as the sun bathed the cemetery in golden light, something remarkable happened. A stray puppy, muddy, shivering, barely old enough to walk, wandered into the cemetery and curled up by the headstone. He didn't seem lost or scared. It was as if he had come home. The townspeople were stunned. Had Charlie sent him? Was it fate? The puppy bore striking features that reminded them of Charlie. His soulful brown eyes, the same gentle curve of his ears. The Thornton family didn't hesitate. They adopted the pup that day and named him Echo, believing he was a living echo of the love that had once bonded a little girl and a forgotten dog. Echo grew up in the Thornton home, bringing laughter and light back to a house that had once been quiet with grief. Jamie, now a teenager, trained him well, and they became inseparable. At school, Jamie even wrote an award-winning essay titled "The Dog Who Stayed," telling the world about Charlie, Lily, and the miracle of love that never dies. Years passed, and Echo, like his predecessor, became known throughout the town. He was the honorary mascot of local events, rode in parades, and visited the children's hospital, where he comforted kids just as Lily once would have. And every year, on the anniversary of Lily's funeral, Echo would walk, without being led, back to the grave beneath the Guardian Tree, and lie there in silence, just as Charlie had done before him. People began saying it wasn't just a dog's loyalty, it was something deeper, a kind of spiritual thread connecting the hearts of those who feel unseen or unloved. A reminder that sometimes the most meaningful goodbyes are followed by the most beautiful reunions. Eventually, the town erected a small memorial near the grave, a carved stone arch that read, "Here lies love in its purest form, Lily, Charlie, and the bonds that even death couldn't break." And though time continued on and generations passed, the story lived in every whispered breeze under the Guardian Tree, in the bark of a dog during twilight, and in the hearts of all who had loved and lost, and learned to love again. As Echo aged, his steps slowed and his muzzle turned grey, yet his spirit remained vibrant. Children who had grown up hearing the story of Charlie and Lily would now gather around Echo in the park, hugging him gently, whispering their secrets, and resting their heads against his side. He listened patiently to each one, his tail wagging as if he understood every sorrow, every hope, and every dream they shared. He became not just a symbol of the past, but a gentle guardian of the present. One cold winter evening, the Thornton family noticed Echo lying by the fireplace, his eyes watching the flickering flames. Jamie knelt beside him, stroking his fur. "You miss them, don't you?" he whispered. Echo gave a soft sigh, resting his head on Jamie's hand. That night, Echo passed away peacefully in his sleep. The town mourned, as if they had lost a family member. The mayor declared a day of remembrance, and hundreds gathered for Echo's farewell. Jamie, now a young man, carried him to the guardian tree, where a small grave was prepared beside Charlie and Lily. As snow fell lightly, Echo was laid to rest, wrapped in the same blanket Charlie had once used, with a small wooden heart that read, "Echo of Love." A statue was later erected beneath the tree, depicting all three, Lily, Charlie, and Echo, standing together, facing the horizon. It became a place where people came not just to grieve, but to heal. Soldiers returning from war, children who had lost a parent, elderly people who had outlived loved ones, all found comfort sitting beneath that tree. Years passed. Jamie grew up, became a writer, and published a book called The Dogs That Waited. It became a global bestseller, not because of its fame, but because of its heart. Letters poured in from around the world, from people who had found hope, love, and even the courage to adopt abandoned animals after reading it. Charlie's story had traveled far beyond the small town where it began. A foundation was created in Lily's name, funding animal shelters and grief therapy programs for children who had lost someone. A mural of Charlie, Echo, and Lily went up in a local children's hospital, where young patients smiled for the first time in weeks when they looked at the warm, painted eyes of the dogs that never gave up. And though the cemetery remained quiet most days, every once in a while, a stray dog would wander into the gates, curl up beneath the guardian tree, and rest. No one knew where they came from, but the townspeople never chased them away. They believed Charlie still sent them, messengers of comfort, spirits of loyalty, small whispers of love. In the end, it was never just a story about a dog and a girl. It was a story about how love, true, selfless, unconditional love, leaves a trail even death cannot erase. It was a story of reunion, of healing, and of a silent promise made under a tree that still stands tall today, its branches carrying the weight of memories that will never fade. Because somewhere, in every bark that echoes down an empty road, in every paw print beside a grave, and in every heart that aches to be understood, Charlie's legacy lives on.